joining. So we'll go through a few housekeeping items here while people are still getting onto the audio and things like that. But if you haven't attended a webinar before, we're going to leverage the Q&A tool to try and corral these awesome questions that you guys usually get submitted in. And that's my reminder to go ahead and check the boxes so that you can see all questions being submitted and be able to upvote those. So yeah, make sure you locate that Q&A panel, pop that open, and keep an eye on that throughout the webinar. Feel free to submit questions as well as kind of keep an eye on the questions that are being submitted. And if you like the question, want to see it get answered, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. That way, if we run out of time, we can get to the most upvoted questions. Also, feel free to join in on the discussion. We try to keep these webinars lively. So we also have the ability to, or you have the ability on your end to, on the chat, watch the chat as well as to interact. Go ahead and switch the to option there to all panelists and attendees, and that way you can join in on the conversation there in the chat. I would remind you to try and keep the questions out of the chat just because of the fact that they'll likely get missed as we're going through some of this kind of stuff, and want to make sure we get those questions answered. So if you can remember to put any of those questions in the Q&A section. This webinar is being recorded. I did remember to hit that record button, so we are good there. And yeah, I think that's all the housekeeping items, right, Joel? Anything else I missed?
No, I think you got everything. And like Jerry said, looks like we're recording it. I think you hit the button instead of me, and we'll post this on the webinars page on our website within about 24 hours. Our marketing team does a great job of getting those posted up there. So yeah, I think that's everything.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why you submitted that one question in the Q&A there about why Jerry is so awesome, but I appreciate that.
I don't even know what you're talking about, but okay.
You
Cool.
don't see it on the slides? Is it not showing up?
Oh, that one right there. Why is Jerry so awesome? Yeah, you know, Jerry, like I've been trying to figure that out. Why are you so awesome? And nobody could give me an answer. So Ekahau webinars, they just no answers given to no actual technical content, no content at all.
We have no answer for that. All right, well, let's do a quick introduction for anybody that hasn't been on these webinars before. Typically, me and Joel are the kind of co-host these things. Sometimes we bring on some special guests, but today you got me and Joel. So I'm Jerry Ola. I am CWNE number 238 and product manager here at Ekahau, and you can follow me on Twitter, ping me on Twitter. Happy to engage with you there. Otherwise, yeah, Joel, who are you?
Yeah, well, I'm Joel, and I am the technical trainer at Ekahau, and also a CWNE, became a CWNE about the same time as Jerry, which was pretty cool to go through that process and stuff. Like Jerry, you can also reach me on Twitter at potato_5 because somebody else has potato5 with no underscore. I'm waiting on that. Someday I'll jump on that when that account expires. But yeah, feel free to engage with us on Twitter after the webinar if you'd like. We'd love that.
And Chris, Jim's giving me a hard time since you're apparently now our surprise third co-host or panelist on this one. You want to introduce yourself since we have granted the mic privileges.
Sure. I'm Chris Reed. I'm lead network engineer at BEI Networks. I am not a CWNE, but working towards it. I've got the NA and the SP going for AP next. And I am your surprise guest and a surprise to me too.
Yeah. Yeah, to make it clear, we just unmuted Chris's mic and when we started talking about coffee cups. And so Chris is totally surprised guest. Thanks for joining us, Chris. Much appreciated. And you're one of those guys that I don't know how you're not already a CWNE. In my opinion, you're an honorary CWNE in my opinion. So
I'll be non-honorary shortly.
Awesome. Well, thanks for attending, Chris. And yeah, feel free to participate as you can.
Or not. It's completely up to you.
All right, so the topic today is Ekahau Pro 10, what's new? So this is going to be one of these kind of product walkthrough webinars. We're going to spend some time in the tool highlighting all the new hotness in Ekahau Pro version 10. And yeah, there hopefully is going to be a few new things in there because there's a lot of new features and new improvements in Ekahau Pro 10 that you may not be aware of yet. And hopefully you'll get some new tips and tricks on how to improve workflow and how to utilize some of the new awesome features in there. All right, so let's talk about some of this new stuff in Ekahau Pro 10. So really, this I think covers everything, right, Joel? It's got a new name and a new loading screen, right? Anything we're missing there?
No, I think that's it actually. I mean, all we did is just put a new loading screen on it and call it a day. There are some new things, I guess. Well, these are the less important ones.
Yeah, of course. Somewhat jokingly, yes, there is a new name, there is a new loading screen to it, which are both very awesome. However, for actually doing a webinar, we've got a few other things to cover. Not sure if we're going to be able to get through this full list as far as demoing this, but I try to pick out the most important ones here, and we'll show you all those. So yeah, I'm not going to obviously read through this slide, but just to give you a quick overview here of all the main changes. And there's many other minor improvements, I would say, beyond this list. One thing that's interesting is I counted up all the new APs and antennas that have been added since Ekahau Pro 10 has been released. We're now on version 10.02. And there's a total of 88 new APs and antennas. So a lot of movement in the AP. Obviously, we've got 802.11ax access points out there now. So there's a lot of new access points, but also a lot of new antennas and a lot of movement in that space. So pretty interesting if you haven't seen some of the latest technology out there. All right, so the first feature that I want to highlight here is Ekahau Pro 10 brings Ekahau Connect support. So if you haven't heard about Ekahau Connect yet, this is a new subscription offering that Ekahau has that kind of enhances. The easiest way to kind of wrap your head around it is take the support and maintenance that used to be, it's your annual support and maintenance, and enhances that, right? So Ekahau Connect subscription includes the support and maintenance that you're likely used to, but also adds on some new things like Ekahau Cloud, and that has been rolled into the Ekahau Pro version 10. So yes, the Ekahau Cloud capabilities enable some things like offsite storage and giving you a centralized backup. But then once you have those project files in that centralized location, makes it easy to share that with Ekahau, other Ekahau Connect users, whether those be users within your organization or outside of your organization. So nice for collaborating on projects and being able to share that information out. But then also makes it easy to transfer those project files from the desktop Ekahau Pro 10 version to the Ekahau Survey for iPad version, and back and forth, obviously. And you get 50 gigabytes of storage there.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this. Working with the iPad, it is so ridiculously easy to just send a project file up to the cloud, grab my iPad, swipe down on the iPad, and bam, there's the project file. It really does making transferring projects between Ekahau Pro on desktop and PC over to Ekahau Survey for iPad really, really seamless.
How did that, can you see my Ekahau Pro screen now?
Yeah, I can.
Cool. Okay. Just want to make sure the screen share works. So let's show how this works. So I'm going to do, just a new project file so you can see what it would look like in Ekahau Pro. So I've got Ekahau Pro version 10.02 loaded up here. And here's that little cloud icon that we're talking about. And then you can also see, if we go to the file menu, you'll also see that cloud import export option is added in the menu there. But yeah, if we just hit the little cloud icon, you can see I'm already logged into my Ekahau Cloud account. So the first thing you would do is prompt you to sign in or create an Ekahau Cloud account if you don't already have one. But here we can see all the project files that are in my Ekahau Cloud account. I can filter down that list and just look for a specific project file. By default, they're going to be sorted by date modified, so the newest ones are always going to be on top. And hey, look at this is a project file that actually Joel shared with me. He's the project owner on this one, but I'm going to go ahead and open this up because he shared this with me in my my Ekahau Cloud or Ekahau Connect account. So yeah, now I can open up that project file. Joel could also be opening the same project file and accessing it on his end all the way over in Boise, Idaho, while I'm over here in Wisconsin. And we could both be looking at the same project file. And if I add some notes in here, I can push those notes back to the cloud, and he would be able to see those changes in here if I either add some information, either predictive or measured. He would be able to see that on his end when I push those changes to the cloud. One thing to keep in mind, the way the Ekahau Pro works today is it is an import-export kind of push-pull process. So here I can see like the date modified on a project file, and I can see when it was changed last. Now, if I do make changes, really right now I'm making those changes locally on this project file, And if I want to push those back to the cloud, I would hit the cloud button here, and then I would say save to cloud, and then it would push those changes up. So if we want to just show that here, if I want to put like a note on the map, let's just add a picture here. I'll take a picture. Very important picture. It's going to be very
Nice
helpful
work.
for Joel.
Yeah, that's really going to give me some context for what exactly was going on when you surveyed that network.
And here it's going to prompt me to save the project file locally on my hard drive before it uploads those changes. That way it's going to write that file in 2 different locations. That way we always have a backup. So I'm going to save that just to a temp folder here locally. And then at the same time, it's also going to push those changes up to the cloud.
And Jerry, I'm gonna let you finish. But a couple people are saying they're having trouble with the picture of your face. Your video is bigger than the screen share. If you're having trouble with that, click on the screen share. That should make it take full screen basically, and make Jerry's video stream small. So give that a try. Sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
No, I apologize for my big face. That's not the first time I've gotten that complaint.
Jerry's maybe in version 10.3, we'll put a feature in there, say minimize size of Jerry's face.
Yeah, we need to figure that out. It's probably some setting on our end, because we do seem to have this issue regularly of figuring out how to get that screen share to show up properly for everybody. But yeah, it sounds like in chat there, James says to double click the little screen. So yeah, just double click that window that is showing the screen share, and that should make that the big window for you. Thanks for letting us know that. So yeah, that is the cloud side of it. So let me switch back over to the slide deck here and look at the next feature. So the project file storage for Ekahau Sidekick. So if you're not familiar with the Ekahau Sidekick, that's this guy here. And you may or may not be aware, when you purchased your Sidekick, this actually has 128 gigs of storage, of built-in storage in there. So over 100 gigs of actual usable storage in here that you can store project files in. So we can actually now take this Sidekick that you may have been using as your measurement device, and now also use it as a storage device for your project files, as well as what benefits does that give you? Well, it makes it easy to transfer project files again in kind of a local mode between your laptop and your Sidekick, or between 2 different users, right? So maybe I'm the back office person and I set up the project file. I load that project file onto a Sidekick, and now I give that out to my field team. Say, here's your Sidekick with the project files that you're going to need. The floor plan's already loaded and scaled. They plug that into their laptop and they can access that storage. So let's take a look. I think I didn't prepare anything in advance, but I think I do have a couple of project files on my Sidekick. So I'm going to go ahead and plug my Sidekick into my laptop, and let's just take a look at that. So very similar process to the cloud. But now you can see the Sidekick button here is lit up because my Sidekick is plugged in and powered on. And same kind of process, import, export, and also again, under the file menu, same thing. We've got the Sidekick import, export menu option lit up now in the menu. So I'm just gonna click that Sidekick icon. And now we're looking at the Sidekick storage. So you can see it's pretty much identical look and feel as the cloud side of it, but now I'm just working locally off the Sidekick storage. So I can see at the bottom here, 107 gigs of total storage and 106 gigabytes available with even these all these project files on here. So if I want to open up this project file here, same process, open from Sidekick, and now we're going to work with that project file locally on my Mac. And then if I want to push that back to the Sidekick, same process. I just click the Sidekick button there, say save to Sidekick. So I could set up a new project file and go through that same process, or vice versa. And then hand that Sidekick over to Joel, and he can see that project file and either pull it up on his iPad or on his Windows or Mac PC running Ekahau Pro. All right. So let's move on to kind of change gears a little bit here. Oops, not hit the.
Wait, you went from first gear to fifth gear.
We get a lot of features to cover. I'm just going to fly through. Renovated map view. So this is one of those things that's a little bit more behind the scenes, but still visually, you'll notice some differences, but also just from a performance and look and feel standpoint, there's some pretty significant changes. So the renovated map view has to do with updating our code base behind the scenes and how these how the heat maps are created, right? And what we've done is updated that using the JavaFX framework, much more modern code base that produces better results from a visual standpoint as well as from a performance standpoint. Functionality, is still the same as far as how you interact with the heat maps, but yet they do look a bit more modern and have that more kind of polished feel to them. Also, it enables some new features with like the scaling capability. So one of the things that you probably have noticed is the elements now are pretty scalable on the map. So what we're talking about there is as you zoom in and out, you'll see how the icons resize themselves depending on the zoom level. Normally that was always a static thing in the past. So that's one thing that's it's much more dynamic feeling now when we're interacting with these maps. And yeah, you'll also just notice, like I said, how much more kind of fluid things feel. I don't know if Joel or Chris, if you guys have had any experience with that or have noticed any improvements in that behavior.
Huge improvements. Yeah, the new. Did you talk about JavaFX already and how? Yeah, it is real. I mean, it looks choppy on Zoom right now, but on locally on your machine, it's like 30 or 60 frames per second, butter smooth, pinch to zoom, scrolling around, all that stuff. It is very smooth and very fast compared to Ekahau 9.
Yeah, it is absolutely way smoother, even with gigantic project files. It's a lot better.
Awesome, very good to hear. Yeah, so it definitely probably doesn't come through as buttery smooth on Zoom as Joel mentioned, but yeah, one of those things you got to try for yourself and get a feel for it. But yeah, along that line, new visualization engine. So this was another very big overhaul behind the scenes in the code base around rewriting the entire visualization engine that creates creates these heat maps, right? So we actually changed the structure behind that quite a bit. If you're familiar at all with how we created those heat maps in the past, without getting into too much nitty-gritty detail, it used to be a very as I say in here, old boring squares, we call them bins, that essentially did the math that created the visualizations. And we've changed that whole kind of thing to this honeycomb hexagonal slots now that do this. And the reason for that is, one, improves performance quite a bit, and two, improves the accuracy and just provides better consistency with the results that it creates when you're creating these heat maps, whether that be for prediction or for measured signal. And also with that, it allows us to increase the maximum slot count, the number of slots that can be displayed on a map. So if you're working with really large project files, each one of these slots, essentially equates to a math formula. So there becomes this computational limit of how many slots can be displayed and calculated on a screen at any given time. And with this hexagonal slot, this new visualization engine that uses these hexagonal slots, we were able to increase that maximum number of slots that can be displayed at any given time. Any comments on that, Joel or Chris?
I'm actually kind of interested, Chris. I feel like I'm putting you on the spot a lot here, but me personally, like as an Ekahau employee, like I think that the new hexagons are cool. But Chris, you're like an actual day-to-day user. What do you think of the hexagons?
I prefer the hexagons to the squares, and I think, especially when presenting to customers, it looks like a much cleaner look, particularly when traversing walls. So it used to be that there'd be this square that went across, the partway went across a wall, so it'd show, it had the, it could show a square with no signal on the other side of a wall, where the hexagon makes that a little bit cleaner. Because essentially what it's doing is it's calculating the signal strength inside of that square as one unit. So if that square has a wall going through the middle of it, it's either deciding on the signal on one side of the wall or the other side of the wall. And the hexagon seems to improve on that.
Dang, I just thought the hexagons looked really cool, but that's like an actual like substantial reason why the hexagons make a lot more sense. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Jerry, can you show that?
Yeah,
Or
that's what I was
can you
trying to
show it
see.
across the wall?
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying. Is you're talking about how these bins used to kind of slice through like an object, and it would kind of mess up the visualizations. And now with these hexagons, it does a much better job of accounting for that. So here's like a warehouse one that'll have these nice long kind of corridor things of these warehouse racks in here. And what you're talking about is when we're looking at the hexagon view, you can see how it's much easier to kind of design this for where those hexagons are going to fall. And notice how now in these aisles, we have very clear indication of where these hexagons are, and we have multiple hexagons that fit inside the aisles in between these, and it's going to represent that much more accurately.
And I think if you put that to super, I think it'll show it even better.
Yeah.
Super.
Let's bump up the accuracy to super, and let's see what happens with these hexagons. So the hexagons, you can see now, now you're seeing a much better idea of what's happening with the accuracy. And remember, each one of these hexagons, each one of these bins, these slots are doing that math formula for us. And you can see how many more slots now that are being factored in. And what that equates to is a lot more accuracy in the visualizations, and like I said, more consistency, because of the fact that we're getting more slots to be able to create those visualizations. So this is obviously getting a bit into the weeds and in the nitty gritty kind of details of how these heat maps are created. But hopefully it helps you to understand, what some of the big changes are behind the scenes in Ekahau Pro 10. And then what we can do with that information is, for reporting purposes and, to still provide those traditional kind of looking heat maps, switch back over to the smooth view. And that's where it's taking all those slots behind the scenes and blending them together in those nice, smooth looking heat maps that we're more used to seeing and our customers are used to seeing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. When we were kind of passing around builds of Ekahau Pro internally in the earlier stages, when I first saw the hexagons, I sent a message to the development team immediately and was like, guys, this is so cool. I really hope this makes it into the final product. And I'm really, really glad that it did. Maybe it was supposed to all along. I'm not sure which, but I just think it looks really, really cool. And it's cool to hear that there's like some actual like good reasons why to use hexagons instead of squares for those bins.
So here's another new change with Ekahau Pro 10, brings support to both the survey and the planning side for 802.11ax technology. So on the planning side, we've got several 802.11ax access points. Actually, to my knowledge, I think we have all the 802.11ax access points, at least enterprise AX access points that are shipping today. If we're missing any, certainly let us know. But yeah, all of them should be in there now. And some on the survey side, it should also be able to identify the PHY types correctly of if you're surveying, in the past, 802.11n on the 2.4 side and AC on the 5 side. Now you can see one of the things that's really interesting to me with AX that, was just kind of like, I knew it existed, but it was really cool to see is, I'm used to always seeing 802.11n on the 2.4 radio. And to actually see a different PHY type on the 2.4 radio was just kind of like, hey, we've got new technology here in 2.4. So pretty cool to see that, AX is, is certainly, on both bands. So normally it was always the 5 gigahertz that was getting all the love. Now we can see on both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz that new PHY type, and this is on a measured access point here. But yeah, some pretty cool stuff. Bunch of new access points in there with AX technology. So if you're doing some future planning for your networks, even if you're planning things out, maybe refreshing your network in a year or two down the road, good to start planning ahead and start looking at, how these AX access points might change your designs and where you're going to put those APs. One thing to note is capacity planning has not been revamped yet to support those 802.11ax clients. Mainly because there's not a whole lot of AX clients out there. So it's pretty hard for us from a development standpoint to simulate the capabilities of these clients. We don't really know what those capabilities are going to be yet, and what that performance is going to look like. So probably will take a little bit more time before we're able to get that worked out into the tool. But yeah, as soon as we have that kind of detail and information and know kind of what these typical AX mobile phones and laptops and things like that, what kind of capabilities they're going to have, we'll be able to create those device profiles and do the actual capacity planning of AX clients.
Should be a lot of fun once we get there. Kind of need to wait for the standard to be ratified first and see some clients get out there.
All right, next up on the list here is the interference detection. Joel, you got anything to talk about on this? Have you had much experience with this one?
Yeah, just a little bit, but from what I've seen, it's pretty fun. And so basically, with the resolution of the spectrum analyzer on the Sidekick, we are able to do interference classification now. And so, so you can see there on the bottom of Jerry's screen, you can see that we're looking at the live spectrum analysis view, and Jerry is holding a 2.4 gigahertz wireless video camera that he's going to plug in. And Jerry, I really hope you're not trying to do this webinar over 2.4 gigahertz.
I hope not either. I guess we'll find out pretty soon.
But what you can see there at the bottom of Jerry's screen is that red box has now been drawn around that. Well, of course, now it goes away right as I start talking about it, but it'll come back here in a second. So Ekahau will actually automatically classify any interferers that it detects. So notice, because this is a live demo and live demos never go as you intend, the camera went away for a second, but now we can see it's back here and we can see where Ekahau is detecting it. There's a camera there. And we can also see in the waterfall view where Ekahau is saying like, okay, this slice of spectrum and this time span in the waterfall view is where there is a wireless video camera, and we get the outline of that device as well.
Yeah, the thing I really like about this is that not only does it tell me what the interfere is, or at least try to classify that interfere, but it's also indicating what areas of the spectrum are being impacted by that. So what channels are going to be impacted by the interfere. So that's kind of stage one of this whole interference detection piece of that is, what is the interference source and what is the impact to the spectrum? This is just all happening automatically, right? All I need to do is plug in my Sidekick, open up Ekahau Pro, and it automatically starts doing that. So I just switched off the camera here so we can see now that went away. We do see there's a lot of Bluetooth hopping around and stuff in here, and because it's very low impact, it's not going to really identify that as necessarily interference, as it's still playing pretty nicely with the Wi-Fi. But yeah, anything that's going to be pretty detrimental to the Wi-Fi, even frequency hopping, devices, it'll show up even as like a generic frequency hopping device. If it is causing actual interference to the Wi-Fi, it will flag that as well. So let's actually take a look at that side.
And Edward just put a little comment in the chat. He's wondering if this works in both the live side or in the survey side as well. And so that is a perfect segue into what Jerry's going to say next.
Yeah, so let's see what is the, that is a great segue, because what we just showed there was the live side of it, which is great for live on the spot analysis, troubleshooting. You've got users that are complaining about problems in this area of the building. You go there, you start looking at the spectrum right away. But what about on the survey side? If we're performing a survey, what value does that interference detection capability add? What we've done is created a new visualization in the tool called the interference visualization. And what that allows us to do is essentially paint a map or a picture of what the area of impact of that interference is. So in the previous example, we talked about what the interferer type is, and the area of impact from a spectrum standpoint. What chunk of the spectrum is it impacting? But what about physical location of that interference? Where is that interferer located, and what is its area of impact in the building? So let's go back over to here, and I'm going to go back to the cloud. And to the cloud, I feel like we're like I don't know what superhero is that.
You got to get some more buzzwords in.
Yeah.
Buzzwords, yeah.
Machine learning, cloud.
All right.
Wi-Fi
So
6.
we went up to the cloud. We're pulling down this interference map that Joel had shared with me. And let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on here. So this one's kind of like this is a hot mess when it comes to interference, right? So we've got all sorts of interferers in here. So you're probably seeing some, if you haven't really played with Ekahau Pro 10 too much and you don't have a Sidekick, you probably haven't seen some of these new things, these new icons that will appear on the map as part of your survey. And these are those interferers. So if an interferer is detected, just like how we place an access point on the map for the My APs and the rogue access points or other access points, we now place icons on the map for interferers. So here we can see, yeah, we've got all sorts of interferers all over the place in this building. So what can we do with that? So right now we're just looking at Wi-Fi signal strength. But what I can do is flip over to the interferers visualization, and now that's going to show us that non-Wi-Fi interference. So it's now painting a heat map of all the non-Wi-Fi interference across the entire map. Let's actually collapse our AP list down here and recenter this map. But now the thing I think is really slick is how we can actually click on the individual interferers and see where that signature was picked up on the map. So one, we can kind of see, you know, how it's locating that interferer, you know, where it heard it the loudest here, right in the middle as we kind of walked around that, you know, walked right past that interferer. But then we can also map out, you know, how far the interferer is kind of impacting, and even, you know, potentially to the floor above and below. Here we're just kind of looking at it horizontally. So we've got the generic frequency hop error there, you know, not real high power. And then we've got something like a video camera here that's impacting 5 gigahertz. If I hover my mouse over that interferer, we can actually see more details about that interferer, see which channels specifically on the Wi-Fi are being impacted. And then let's look at like a headset. You know, we talked about, you know, some Bluetooth, you know, type stuff before. So this headset is impacting the Wi-Fi. It's impacting 2.4. It's impacting all the way through channel 14, so channel 1 through 14, but it's very low power, and we can see that because the area of impact is very small, which is, you know, going to be expected, right? A headset isn't meant to broadcast across the entire building. It's usually meant to go right from your ear to your computer or phone. So very low, minimal proximity. But if you've got an access point or another receiver that's in that same area, the area of impact is going to be important, right? Couple other interferers here. You've got some other video cameras. So like this video camera, that same video camera signature was picked up in more than one location. So we actually see it. So there's probably a second video camera. However, it heard one of the video cameras loudest over here. So you might have a situation where you could have a couple of different interferers that have the same signature, and they could show up in different parts of the building.
Jerry, how is that red zone calculated?
So that's so you can see obviously the survey path, right? And yeah, that's actually a good point. Let's actually dive into that a little bit further. So let's go back to the middle here, this camera, and let's go to our survey inspector mode. So if I go and pop up the same view that we were looking at before live, but let's put this into a playback mode and see the recorded data. So actually, you know what, let me even back up a little bit further than that. I think if I remember right, if we double click on this, I think it will pop up. Maybe it won't actually pop up, but it'll, yeah, here we go. So if we do pop this open and double click on it, it will actually zoom to the spot in the survey where that interferer was detected. So we can actually pop this out into a full screen mode as well. But yeah, to your question, you know, how does it know the area of impact? Well, what it's doing is it's saying these are all the areas during your survey that signature was detected, and then where it places the icon on the survey path is wherever it heard it the loudest, right? So if we zoom in on this particular interferer, this was recorded in the survey, we can kind of see that signature and where that was heard during the survey path, you know, wherever it flagged that and classified that as an interferer, and now it's going to show that area of impact around that, you know, during that survey, wherever that interferer was heard.
So that red area is everywhere that it had enough data in order to classify it?
Correct. Yeah, it heard that interfere loud enough and clear enough that it could say, hey, there's a video camera here, and it heard it loudest here, but yet that it heard it everywhere else along the survey path wherever we saw that red. So it still was impacting, that's its area of impact, if you will, but the physical location of the device is going to likely be right in this area here where we walked right past it. So yeah, that's one of my favorite features. We did have the interference classification in experimental mode in the in prior to Ekahau Pro 10, but in Ekahau Pro 10, it did come out of beta or come out of that experimental mode and is enabled by default. It does require a Sidekick to work, but with the really high resolution Sidekick, the spectrum analyzer in the Sidekick does a great job of being able to identify those interferers. A couple other things here. So multi-note. So the note taking, I did show you that briefly already. So I won't spend too much time on this one, but just to kind of show you this note taking capability. So if we go over to the planning side here, we have this new note button. So you can see we simplified the notes. Previously, we had things like text note, picture note, all these kind of things. We created now just kind of a unified map note tool, and you can drop these map notes on the map, whether you're in planning mode or survey mode. And then you've got a little plus button within this. So it's kind of a conversation style note now in the map. And if we hit the plus button, that's where we can upload a picture, take a picture with the camera on the device, and then embed that directly into the map of that location. So this could be, you know, like I was saying, kind of a chat dialogue type thing. So we can see, you know, the chat here and the date and timestamp and who put that note on the map. So this is really great for large projects where you're collaborating on a project, and maybe you have 2 or 3 different people surveying that project, and you've got somebody that's the project manager, maybe back at the office, and they want to be able to track this kind of stuff and be able to comment on these things and add some insights to that. And you can see also like the note here that we put on there before, that awesome picture. You know, get a nice little pop-up of the picture there. And then same with the text notes, you know, we can see those details as well by hovering our mouse over those. So that's the note taking. The other thing that's cool with the kind of unified approach with that is that same map note feature applies to the Ekahau survey for iPad, which I think is really slick on that side of it, because you've got obviously a really good camera. You've got annotation controls with, you know, with either your finger or pencil. And now you have that unified note-taking capability between the two platforms. All right, this is another big one here. So this is Access Point List 2.0. And this is one of those, again, like from the surface level, may not seem like that big of a, you know, a change. But this really opens up kind of a whole new world of possibilities with the data that is in the AP list and some of the notes and the data that's there. So again, rewrote this completely to update that code base, the Java effects, to make it align with the rest of the code base there. But yeah, the AP model and vendor information has been split into their own fields, which again, doesn't really sound like that big of a deal, but it really opens up a lot more flexibility of what we can do with the data. And I think it's gonna, it opens up some stuff today, but it's gonna open up even more possibilities down the road. Some things that we can do is improve things like sorting. You can swap out AP models now, which is you know, some stuff that I feel like is a bit long overdue, and I'm really happy to see us finally do it. But this was really what was kind of hindering some of those kind of capabilities that have been being asked for a while, is because everything used to be just kind of consolidated down into a single field, that it made it difficult to kind of separate those kind of things out. So by separating these things out allows us to enable a lot more capabilities and flexibility with these kind of things. So let's take a look at that real quick here. So here's the, on the left here this is what we're talking about. This is that AP list here. So one of the things that's cool is, you know, like I was saying, as far as the sorting side of things. So in the past, you know, we've, you know, used the vendor name and the AP model name, you know, if you're doing like predictive models, all in one field. And now being able to separate these things out, of having a separate name here from the actual model name is really slick. Another thing that's really cool about this was one of the things that I learned about while I was just kind of putting together the materials for this webinar that I missed in the launch here, was that you can now assign, actually these are measured access points, but I can actually assign the specific model number of this access point to that actual measured access point. So let's say in this case, this is a Ubiquiti I'm not sure what it is, but we'll just say it's an AP Pro. And now you can see not only do we have the vendor information, but now also the AP model information there. And that's completely separate from the name field. So if I want to call this thing AP01, we can do that, right? So it gives us a lot more flexibility there. Also, if you hit the 3 dots here, you're going to get a whole lot more information. Notice we have the same note style, so that unified note process here. But you can now, instead of a map note, we can have an AP note. So this could be a simulated access point or a measured access point. We can attach, just like the map notes, pictures. So if we want to take a picture of how this AP is installed and mounted, again, really slick on the iPad side with being able to annotate those pictures and be able to, maybe write something on there like the MAC address of the AP or something like that, or even just comment in here with the, the MAC address of the AP and log that in here, right? So now that can be associated with that. And then this is really good for obviously reporting purposes as well. So we can report on that. So we can have the text notes, the picture notes, the AP names, all that kind of stuff in there, as well as the AP model. Chris, did you know about that one?
Absolutely. I've used that a bit, especially being able to swap AP models. So getting a request to do 2 different designs for 2 different products is you do the one and then you can swap all the models and see how much you have to tweak it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, so let's look at that on the planning side. So that's been one of those things, like I was saying, I feel like is pretty long overdue, and unfortunately, yeah, it had to do with having to rewrite the entire code base for that access point list, and we've finally gotten there. So let's take a look at what Chris is talking about, is being able to quickly swap out those APs. So I took this old warehouse design here. This thing is designed with 2.4 N access points, and since we're talking about AX, let's just say we're going to swap out all these APs with AX access points. So now what I can do is I can select all the access points. And the one thing to be aware of that threw me off a little bit on this is you do have to be on the edit tool. So the first tool in the toolbar there. And then notice when I switch to the edit tool, I now get this new drop down option here. And what Chris is talking about is how we can quickly swap out all of these APs that are on the map for either a different model, different vendor. Right now these are just generic access points, and maybe throughout the planning process, we weren't sure what we were going to install, what vendor, what model. So we started with a generic access point, and now we want to quickly swap that out for some AX access point. What's a model we should look at putting in this warehouse? Chris, what do you think? You've done some warehouse stuff, right?
A little bit. You know what? We've got some HP APs in there. Warehouses, they're usually they're usually looking for stuff on the cheap side. Why don't we just throw a Unify AP Pro in there? They're trying to save some money.
Unify AP Pro. All right, so I'm going to select the Unify AP Pro, and we can take a look real quickly of what that looks like. I should have actually switched to our signal strength there so we could see the change there. But yeah, so now if I switch back over to signal strength, we can see that that coverage there of those APs. And if we don't like that and we want to try something else, we can also take a look at that as well. Let's look at what is it, a 515. Probably not the greatest warehouse access point, but since we're talking about AX, let's see if we put a bunch of 515s in there. AX access points, you can see the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Also has a Bluetooth radio in there. Haven't really mentioned much about Bluetooth because that was actually brought in 9 version, but that's another newer feature in Ekahau that's obviously carried over in Ekahau Pro 10. So yeah, that's a nice feature to be able to quickly swap out APs. Just be aware when you do swap them out, it does reset things like the AP height, AP transmit power, but we can quickly adjust that as well. Even if I want to just do like select all here, and we're going to edit the selected simulated radios. We can say, let's bump these up to, in this environment, let's say we're going to put them at 35 feet up in the air. And now we can adjust all of those radios together. On that note, one other thing that's pretty slick that's new in here is the antenna linking feature here. I'm jumping ahead a little bit in the slide deck, but while we're on kind of that topic, one thing that's nice is the antennas are linked together now. So let's see here. Yeah, so you can see here the option is actually grayed out right now to link the selected antennas because they're already linked together. But yes, if we go to the buttons here, we can actually see that these are going to be linked together as we make the changes here. So let's say if we want to raise this up to 40 feet, for example. Now, if we go over to radio 2, you can see the radio 2 is also in the past. We always had to adjust each radio separately since those are two different elements. But now with the antenna linking feature, they're automatically linked together to adjust those at the same time. And yeah, if we want to unlink those, I'm trying to remember where we do that. There was a unlink feature here, but trying to think where that would show up. There is a way to unlink them as well if you need to.
Yeah, it should have been when you right-clicked on the AP. I thought that's where it was anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm missing that one. Maybe it's something with like the Bluetooth on there, but yeah, there is a way to unlink them as well.
I thought, Jerry, that was only available if you were using external antennas. Is that it?
You're right. Yeah, that could have something to do with it. Yeah, you're probably right, because that would be the only time I think it would make sense to unlink them. You're probably right. That's why I'm not seeing it on the internal here.
Unless you're going to take a hatchet to your AP and split it in half.
Well, let's grab swap this one to an external antenna here, and we'll just try that real quick.
Jim says that linking is the best. I agree. It was really, really annoying back in the day to have to go through and do that, and have to set them both manually.
Yeah. So yeah, you were correct. Put an external antenna AP on there, and now you can unlink them and go back to the old way of doing things where you can adjust each radio independently.
If you hate yourself, you can do that.
All right, let's see how we doing on time here.
Terrible, really bad. It's about 10, almost 10, 50, or 50 minutes past the hour.
Okay, so we will wrap things up here pretty quickly, but I think I've covered all the major features. So distance based extrapolation. This is another kind of getting into the nitty gritty kind of stuff here. But one thing that you're going to notice is this is kind of the normally we always use this accuracy slider here, and you're still going to see the same accuracy slider for simulation where it goes from rough to super. But let's say we have purely a measured project here, surveyed project. To simplify that from, what does that mean? We can do some extrapolation of the measured data. So let's open up an actual surveyed project here. I'll pull up that interferer one again, and you can look at we'll look at the options here and see what's different. So yeah, notice now we have actually a footage scale that we can use to show how far we're extrapolating that signal from the measured path. So if I adjust this to 16 feet, for example, you're going to see that spread, is going further off the survey path. If we adjust that down to 7 feet, it's much tighter to the survey path. So it's a simpler way to kind of wrap your head around those visualizations. And that automatically changes based on if you're viewing predicted information or if we're viewing measured information. So with measured, we're going to see this accuracy slider. On that note, the other thing that I do have is the new survey inspector mode. So this is another mode that was added to the the visual options. And one thing that's pretty cool on this one is we looked at the smooth and the detailed. What about the inspector mode? So the inspector mode gets us down into this nitty gritty detail of each individual data collection point along the survey path. So what that allows me to do is if I want to see exactly that sweep, that scan that it did while I was doing a continuous survey, I can see each one of those little bumps along the survey path. And this just gives you a nice visual too to understand how many data points are collected during the survey. So this is also good kind of checks and balances just to make sure, when I did walk in and out of a room, did I actually get a full sweep, a full scan of the entire spectrum while I was in that room? So this is a nice visual way to just dig into those details. And then obviously you can hover your mouse over those individual circles and see the details there. On that note, the other thing that's kind of cool is this new, if you hold down T for tooltip, you can actually get these tooltips to come up really quickly. So wherever you have your mouse, I'm holding down T currently on the keyboard, and you can actually see these tooltips pop up really fast. Normally, if I'm not holding down T, I have to keep my mouse there for a few seconds, it pops up, and then I move it over here, I've got to wait. So it's a fairly slow process, but if I really quickly want to just kind of hover my mouse over different areas and see exactly what the signal is, this can really, save you some time.
Yeah, and I think you can also just, if you want to invoke a tooltip at any time, you just tap the T button, right? And that will just instantly pop up a tooltip. And that works in any visualization in Ekahau, not just signal strength, not just this view, everywhere.
Yep. And
That inspector view is a great way to check to make sure if you don't have a fantastic sidekick, that you're walking at a good pace to get the data that you need.
Yeah, so I think the important thing to call out here, based on a couple things I'm seeing in the chat, is that when in the other modes, Ekahau is doing interpolation and extrapolation to fill in all the gaps. So smooth mode, it's doing a lot of interpolation and extrapolation. That is derived from the detailed view where we have all these individual bins. But the inspector mode only shows us real, actual data points that the either the Ekahau Sidekick or your survey adapters gathered along the way. But Ekahau does a bunch of math to fill in the rest.
Yeah, so essentially it just gives you some more granular details, right? So I think it's really good to just provide that. You may never need this kind of capability, but if you're trying to troubleshoot something, trying to understand, why am I seeing a dead spot on the map in this particular room? Going down to this inspector level detail to help understand why the visualization looks the way that it does can really help explain some things. And then to even go one step further, we can open up the signal view here, the real-time frequency monitor at the bottom here. And now we can even, while we're in the inspector mode, look at the details of that. So I showed you the tooltip method of just kind of hovering your mouse over that area to get the tooltip. But what if we want to get more details? Well, now I can click on those individual dots that appear on the survey path when we're in this mode, and we can drill down into those details. Cool. I think that covered everything. Yeah, that was all the slides that I had. Like I said, there's many more little improvements and things like that, but figured that was about all we'd have time to cover here on this webinar. Joel, Chris, did I miss anything super critical that you can think of?
Not that I can think of. I think you pretty much covered all the main. There's still a few things there, but I think you got all the high points. And plus, it'd be kind of nice to go through some questions. We have 41 questions. So.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
we covered a lot, so I guess that's not too surprising.
If anybody wants to go into the Q&A, and you can see all the questions that are there, and you can add a question if you'd like, and you can also upvote other questions. And I'm just going to start at the top and kind of work our way down, and we'll see how many we can get answered in a reasonable amount of time. So the first question, Jerry, probably kind of a tricky one. This one revolves around the auto planner in Ekahau. So apparently some users are seeing where Ekahau Pro 10 is calculating about 30% more APs when using the auto planner than Ekahau Site Survey 9 did. Also noted in the question here, and the coverage map showed more coverage holes when they upgraded the project from Ekahau 9 to Pro 10. Is anyone else having the same experience? Do you want to speak to that at all? Like why people are seeing some differences between the coverage calculations and why they might be seeing some differences in the auto planner? Oops, you're muted. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, unmute will be better. So the auto planner one is interesting because I'm not aware of any significant changes to the auto planner code per se. That said, obviously, as we mentioned, the whole visualization engine has been rewritten, so that could certainly, I would think, have an impact in how the auto planner does, define that. Let's actually look at opening up a planning project here and just kind of talk through the auto planner real quick. But the other piece of it about opening project files that were originally created in version 9 dot whatever to Ekahau 10, the visualizations will look quite a bit different because of that different visualization engine. One of the big changes on there is that we don't apply signal prediction to those models. We do on the predictive models, but not on the survey. In the past, in not version 9, we did apply signal prediction to both planning and surveyed results. So yes, on version 10, we no longer apply that signal prediction visualization to the visualization. So that will certainly have an impact on there. Now, depending on which way you look at it, really it should be for the better from an accuracy standpoint. but it certainly could create some holes. The way you'd kind of work around that is by lowering the accuracy or expanding in the survey side of things would be the decreasing the accuracy to expand the signal out, right? And that should result in similar results to what you saw in version 9, at least, so you're not seeing those coverage, or not really coverage holes, but potentially kind of measurement holes, gaps in the survey data. Should kind of fill that in, but yes, it is a different way that we're creating those visualizations. So I would expect some differences in the output there. On the auto planner side, yeah, I don't think this one has an area defined. So let me draw that in quick. On the auto planner side, we'll just draw in this area.
And I guess that it looks like some clarification was added. The question, this actually does relate to more of the manual planning side than it does the auto planner. But apparently the visualizations are just different enough that they're having to place more APs on the same floor plan than they were in the past.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is an older project file, so I don't think this one's going to work for this purpose, but let me pull up a different planning one.
Well, okay, looks like a 30% change. That is a pretty complex question. That is one that we might have to take offline. That's probably something we may have to take offline. I'll let Jerry work on it here for a second here, but we may need to talk about that one when we have some more time.
Yeah, I would be interested to get a little more details on that one. But yeah, to my knowledge, the auto planner engine hasn't had any significant changes to it. So I'd be curious to understand that better. But yeah, here's the auto planner. If all the settings are the same in here, I would expect the results to be fairly similar. If we're seeing differences there, you know, certainly if you haven't already opened up a support case, so we can look into that some more.
Yeah, yep. We'd like to talk to you more about that. Probably be a good idea to be able to do it in an environment where we can actually look at those projects and see what is going on. So, yeah, sorry if that's not a very concrete answer, but hopefully we can get that addressed for you. Question from Daniel in regards to the individual bins, the hexagons. How large are they, Jared? I think you talked about that a little bit, but do you want to speak to that at all as to the actual size of the hexagons? And I think I know which way you're going to go on that answer.
So yeah, you're talking about the individual hexagons.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know how big each one is?
Yeah, how big are the hexagons? But I think I know how you're going to answer this question.
I'm curious to see how you're going to answer this question.
You want me to take a crack at it?
So we can certainly measure them, but yeah, I'm curious if that's what you're going for or what.
Yeah, I think my answer here is it depends, right? It depends on the, does it depend primarily on the scale or does it depend on the resolution of the background map? Which one of those is it?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the, I believe it's the scale of the map is going to adjust the sizes, and we can test this real quick here. So right now you can see this hexagon is 3.4 feet. And I'm trying to remember, I know I've done this before, but it's been a while, but let's just set this to 30 feet just to go something kind of drastically different and see how that changes the size of the hexagons. So I'm adjusting the scale of the map, you know, obviously incorrectly, but just to kind of show if this does or does not have an impact on those sizes of the hexagons. Besides that, I mean, the main way you adjust the size of those hexagons is the slider, right? So going from super is going to be the smallest size hexagons, the smallest size slots on the map, and then lowering the accuracy is going to increase the size of the hexagons, thus lowering the resolution. And yeah, here you can see with adjusting the scale here. Let's see now. You know, do we have the same size hexagon? And I actually probably in this case, we may be even exceeding the capability. So yeah, here you can see now it's 8 feet across because I adjusted the scale of the map drastically. So it does have to do with the scale of the map is a big piece of that.
Yeah, so I think in the end, the answer to that is it depends a lot. It depends on the scale of the map. It depends on the size of the background map, and most importantly, though, it seems to depend on the scale. Does that sound correct, Jerry?
Yeah, and it's meant to be dynamic. You know, depending on the size of the map and the size of the project, it should scale well with it. That's kind of one of the big benefits of this new visualization engine is meant to scale better with you know, smaller and larger projects.
Yeah, you certainly don't want the same size bucket for a couple of million square foot warehouses, small retail location.
Exactly.
Great. So next question. I don't know that we can give a concrete answer to this one either on the webinar, but the question is, I work for an organization that will not allow the use of a public cloud. Is it possible to use a private cloud?
So the way you would work around that today would be using the Sidekick. So if you're not able to use the cloud at all, that's really the reason why at the same time that we launched the cloud, we launched the storage of the Sidekick. So kind of think of the Sidekick as your local offline cloud, if you will. So same functionality for the most part using the Sidekick. Obviously, the cloud does have some convenience factors, but yes, certain security policies and things like that may prevent the ability to use the cloud. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't really have any more for you beyond that at this time, but that would be your solution to be able to still leverage all the capabilities of Ekahau Connect, even without the cloud.
Great. Next question is from Pascal. Do I need to foresee some problems by loading projects previously created in Ekahau Site Survey 9 to Ekahau Pro 10? So Pascal, the one thing to watch out for is that if you open up a project in Ekahau Pro 10, it'll open up Ekahau Site Survey 9 projects, no problem. But once you save it with Ekahau Pro 10, you will no longer be able to open it in Ekahau Site Survey 9. So it's a good idea to back up your project files before you start opening them up in Ekahau Pro 10 so that you can revert if you need to for some reason. Also, like we've talked about earlier, the visualization engine has been changed. It should be more accurate now, but you might see some differences in visualizations than what you did in Ekahau Site Survey 9. Jerry, any more comments there?
No, I think you got it.
Cool. Great. Let's see. Question from Sean here. Jerry, I don't know much about this function, so hopefully you can help with this one. I see there's a function to export from Prime infrastructure. Is this to allow you to import the map, including APs, so that you can use the superior prediction survey functions of Ekahau? Can you speak to that one at all?
Yeah, so the goal of the export import type stuff for Cisco Prime is to save you some of that redundancy of being able to not having to replicate that information within Cisco Prime. So you can do it once in Ekahau Pro, do your designs there using the capabilities in Ekahau Pro, export that to a Cisco Prime file format, and then once we export the plan, it's going to include things like the here it should tell us maps, walls, and simulated access points will be converted into the Cisco Prime export format. And then, you can import that project file into Cisco Prime. Also, a thing that you may not be aware of because we don't have an import export for Aruba is Aruba also has for their Airwave product now the ability to import Ekahau project files. So if we've got some Aruba customers on and using Airwave, they added in a couple of recent versions ago the ability now to import Ekahau project files in there. And actually, I saw it in action for the first time earlier this week or last week. And I was pretty impressed. They did a good job with it's very seamless. Saves a lot of time. Didn't do a picture perfect job of some of like the wall types and stuff like that, but still a big time saver, pulling in all the APs, their names, their locations, the models, all that kind of stuff, the maps, very seamless, very quick.
Next question. I think this is a great question. I'm really glad that the anonymous attendee who asked this question. What courses or certifications would you recommend for a beginner entering the Wi-Fi analysis and assessment business? My background is electrical contracting, but computer networking and wireless networks interest me. I'm right there with you. They interest me a lot as well. My recommendation is going to be either one of these two things, or maybe even both if you can. First off, the CWNP program, that's the Certified Wireless Network Professional Program, offers an entry-level certification called the Certified Wireless Network Administrator, CWNA. Go pick up David Coleman and David Westcott's CWNA study guide on Amazon. That is still to this day my Wi-Fi Bible. I refer back to that book all the time. So you can go take a boot camp if you want, or you could just read through the book and take the exam and get certified. The book is excellent. Second way, this is kind of a plug for our own product, so I apologize for that, but we also offer our own training program called the Ekahau Certified Survey Engineer, or ECSE Design. The ECSE Design is a 3-day boot camp. Am I remembering that correctly? 4 days? 4-day boot camp. And what I love about the ECSE design is it's not so much of a here's how to click on stuff in Ekahau course. It's more of a here's how to design great Wi-Fi course. And it just happens to use Ekahau.
Can I jump in?
No.
No,
Okay,
not at
fine.
all.
Go ahead.
So as someone that's not paid by Ekahau, I love the ECSE class. It is like a mini CWNP the first couple of days, and you don't even touch Ekahau until the last few days. It's a great foundational knowledge on designing great Wi-Fi, and then on top of that, learning how to use the product. So if you've only got to pick one, and you're going to be using Ekahau, I actually really like the ECSE course.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Chris. Much appreciated. Cool. Yeah. So I think, CWNA or the ECSE design, one of those two. Definitely pick up the CWNA study guide. Be a great idea to read through the CWNA study guide before you go take the ECSE design. That would be an excellent idea. I'm just going to keep going through the questions here. Apologies that we're going a little over time here, but we've still got quite a few people on, and so I think we can just kind of keep going through questions here. Lonnie asks, the only thing that you can save to the Sidekick are Ekahau project files, correct? Yes, that is correct. Keep in mind, though, that an Ekahau project file contains everything. It contains your background map. It can contain predictive elements like walls and things like that. You can add notes. You can add pictures. You can add annotations. So an Ekahau project file really can contain a lot of data. But you are correct. It's just the project file. So hopefully we got that one answered. Quick and easy one. Roman asks, is there a way to zoom in on a map with a laptop without a mouse or scroll wheel? Chris Reed, I would like to bring you back up to the stand to answer this one since you've already given a text-based answer here.
Yeah, so you could do control up and down to zoom in and out really easily. You can also, after you do that, you can press and hold the space bar to zoom around. If you're on a laptop, pinch to zoom works as well.
Yeah, so Jerry is demonstrating the pan with the space bar. So whenever you hold down the space bar, it basically turns your mouse into a panning tool. So you don't click on the mouse, you just hold down the space bar. And especially if you're in like a Windows environment or something like that, maybe you don't have two-finger scroll or pinch to zoom like we have on Mac OS, then that space bar scroll is really, really, really cool. So question/comment from an anonymous attendee on the webinar. It would be great to be able to add corners in an area, split a side in two, or make an indent or something like that. Jerry, product manager, did you hear that?
I'm not quite sure I followed that.
So I think the idea here is that if you create an area, it would be nice to be able to add additional points to the outside of the area to,
like
if you like,
already drawn it.
Yeah, so you don't have to redraw that in. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't think that is possible today. Once you've drawn it, you got to put those corners in.
Now you can move existing corners. I found that out yesterday, actually. So I was on a call with Jerry and a couple of our other SEs. So yeah, so probably 3 more questions, and then we need to call it a day here. So we'll keep going through these here. Let's see. Cheryl asks, has the Aruba 500 series made its way in yet?
It has.
It has. Is it all in there, Jer Bear?
We've got the 515. I don't know. This is 1001. So let me see if any others have been added yet. But yeah, I don't know. We just updated. We just came out with 1002, and I know there were several updates, several new APs in there. So I'm trying to think if that included any other Aruba APs.
Yeah, if there's an AP that's missing, then drop us a line, and whether it's on Twitter or shoot us an email or contact our support@ekahau.com and let us know. Let's see. Jim says the 515 and the 535 are both in 10.0.2. Yep, there's 515. Yep, there they are. Any APs missing? Let us know. We often APs just kind of get released without us even realizing it, and so just let us know. We kind of rely on you guys to help us keep that up to date. So thank you for your efforts there. Another question, when you select an AP on the map, does Pro 10 support the feature of highlighting in the access point list, the orange half sphere indicator on the scroll bar that tells you where the AP is on the list? Jerry, what do you say to that one?
I say it does not. So yeah, with the AP list, so what we're talking about here is in the past, it used to give you a little indicator. So like I've selected this access point here, and normally it gives me an indicator in that list of where that's selected. It tells me up on the top here that 2 radios are selected, but it doesn't tell me which direction from a scroll side that is. Now, one thing we did do is make it more prominent of what is selected in the list. So it makes it a little easier, as you're scrolling around to be able to see clearly where that is, as you're scrolling up and down the list. But yeah, that has been a discussion point internally about that being removed, because yeah, I was a big fan of those little indicators there as well.
Are you saying that we took away a feature, Jerry?
It seems we like to do that sometimes. We like to just remove something, see if anybody was using that, and then wait for people to complain, and then it's like, oh, all right, we'll turn that back on. People actually did use that feature.
We probably we do it for fun, right? It's for fun.
It's possible.
Right? We do it on purpose. No, not really, but
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
good, nice way to go. Cool. Okay, I think this is going to have to be our last question. Apologize if we didn't get through to your question, but Jerry's going to go ahead and leave our contact information up there on the screen for a couple minutes. And so if you want to drop us a line, shoot us an email. We would be more than happy to dialogue with you about any questions that you have. Question from Max: is Bluetooth considered interference in Ekahau Pro 10?
I don't think it is. Yeah, and honestly, that's one of those things of if it is Bluetooth, if it is, I don't remember which version of Bluetooth that they started being friendly with Wi-Fi, but yeah, you'll notice like when I was showing Bluetooth on my live view, you could see the Bluetooth hopping around, but it was avoiding specific channels that had actual Wi-Fi communications happening on there. So actually it's pretty interesting when you watch Bluetooth technology and how it does actually intentionally not, try to not interfere with Wi-Fi and where it is. It'll actually, if you have a very busy environment, like my environment's not very busy, you'll notice there is access points on channel 1 and there's actually an access point on channel 9. But you can see all the Bluetooth is mostly focusing around the areas in between those channels and only using those other channels, when there's not activity going on with Wi-Fi. So it actually is kind of by design that it shouldn't be interfering with it. So it's technically not, shouldn't technically be interference.
Bluetooth can definitely get to a point where it will cause interference, but I'm going to say that 98% of the time, 99% of the time, it's not Bluetooth. Bluetooth typically does not cause Wi-Fi interference, at least in my experience. Cool. Well, lots of great other questions here. Sorry, everybody, if we can't get to all those questions. Would have loved to stay on with you and go through these, but I do want to be respectful of everybody's time and let everybody go. Yeah, Jerry, can you throw our contact information up on the screen that one last time there? Yeah, I had it up earlier, so I think...
I was staring at the real-time frequency monitor, watching all the Bluetooth.
I get it. I do it all the time. It's a lot of fun. So cool. Well, hey, everybody, thank you for joining us for this webinar today. Definitely kind of more of a product-focused webinar instead of a technology-based webinar. We try not to do these too often because we don't want to turn these into sales presentations. But at the same time, there are lots of nuts and bolts and things. And so we hope that this was helpful from an education standpoint to help you understand what has changed and what new features are there to take advantage of. I certainly have learned about several new features in Ekahau Pro 10 in the past couple of days I did not know existed. So hopefully this was helpful to you. We will post the recording to this webinar on our website within 24 hours. So go to ekahau.com /webinars. I'm pretty sure it's there. Or just click on the training tab and click on webinars, and that will take you there. Jerry, thank you so much for presenting today. Chris, thank you for thanks for your contributions as well. We enjoyed having you on here. Cool.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
We'll go ahead and wrap it up. Everybody have a good one. See you on a future Ekahau webinar.